Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and continuing my series going through my top 5 favorite TV shows of all time. I'm doing one video per show just to make sure I have plenty of time to talk about it. I did a series like this for my top 5 favorite movies of all time, and this is my second video, so video 1's about Firefly. This one, I'm sure you've guessed it and seen it by now, Smallville. This has got to be one of my favorite shows of all time. Now, if you go through my channel, you'll find me and my friend Jared did a 2-part video already going through Smallville, our loves for the show, our hates for the show, but ultimately what just endears us to this show. This is a show I truly did have a great love-hate relationship with. So if you want the details on that love-hate relationship and things like that, check out that conversation that Jared and I had, that 2-part awesome conversation. It is definitely 2 great videos worth checking out. This video I'm going to talk about why this is one of my top 5 favorite shows of all time and spend more time talking about what really has endeared me personally to this show that has made it kind of just stick with me all this time. So, Smallville, first off, it's about Superman, and Superman is my favorite superhero of all time, hands down. Batman is up there, like really, really close. Love Batman, but Superman, just one of my absolute favorite heroes ever. So when this show first came out, that was the reason that I gave it a chance, because of Superman. And then before you knew it, I got hooked on this show, man. I got hooked. And there were several things that got me hooked on it. I mean, first off, the casting was pretty darn good. Lex Luthor, Michael Rosenblum as Lex Luthor, single greatest interpretation of Lex Luthor I have ever seen.
I am the villain of the story.
And as the show progresses and you see Lex take further and further steps over to the dark side, it's awesome. It's subtle. You can see why he's making those choices. And you can see the consequences of those choices. Because we know the future. We know the destiny of Lex Luthor. We know the destiny of Clark Kent. So what we actually begin to see in the show that I think is really clever is how much even little decisions that we think aren't that big of a deal, really in the long run, impact us greatly. Because you see Lex Luthor make small decisions, and you know those are the tiny steps that are going to lead him to the dark side, where he's going to grow up and become the villainous Lex Luthor. You see Clark make tiny decisions, even with all of his mistakes. You see him make these tiny decisions that you know ultimately will form the superhero that he becomes. So that was something that was really great about watching that show. But you know, I have to say, the thing that ultimately really attached me to Smallville as I was growing up is because something about watching Clark reach his destiny and slowly, and watching the struggles on the way really connected with me. Because for me, what really made this connection for me was growing up a Christian. I know that God loves me, and I know God has a calling on my life. So in that sense, it feels like I have a destiny. So I'm watching Smallville, and I'm knowing Clark has a destiny, but Clark doesn't know that. I know what Clark will become. He doesn't. So I'm watching him as he's making his way towards his destiny, ever with the hope that he is going to reach it, and he will be wearing that cape and flying around the skies. And I think some other dynamic that really got me with this show was that dynamic between Jor-El and Clark Kent. So in season 2, season finale, they begin to introduce the voice of Jor-El, and there's such a misunderstanding between Clark and Jor-El. I kind of like the misunderstanding approach, because when Clark first gets the signal from Dr. Swan, played by Christopher Reeve, and it's a signal that Dr. Swan intercepted because he's a genius and he's super rich. So he intercepted this signal, and it was a Kryptonian signal about Clark to basically the Kents, but this guy's the guy that the technology intercepted, and it said, "This is Kal-El, our infant son, our last hope. Please protect him and deliver him from evil." Fantastic message, right? Well, then he goes into the Kryptonian ship, and the Kryptonian language in this ship is a message from Jor-El to Clark. And the message in the ship says, "Reign over them with strength, my son. That is where your greatness lies." So there's confusion there. Protect him and deliver him from evil to reign over them, conquer. I mean, that's how Clark, that's how Jonathan, that's how they interpret it. But it turns out that was a misinterpretation from, a Kryptonian culture that Clark never saw and was never part of, from a Kryptonian person who Clark Kent never met in person at the time of reading that message. So, of course, having none of the culture, having none of the context, and none of the personality of the sender of the message, of course, that message itself seemed really cold. And as he's getting to know Jor-El, everything feels really cold. What Jor-El's asking of him feels horrible. It feels cold. It feels like it's all part of that plot to make Clark an evil conqueror. But then as the show progresses, you find out it really is a misunderstanding. When Jor-El said reign over them with strength, he meant be their ultimate hero. be their hero. Be there and be strong and stand for them and lead them into the light. I mean, that's more or less what Jor-El was meaning. But through years of Clark developing a relationship with Jor-El and getting to know Jor-El, that's what began to change Clark's mind. And it made me think about that between my relationship between me and God. I mean, I pick up the Bible, and there's things I read in the Bible that I totally don't understand at all. And I'm just like, wow, that sounds really mean. And that sounds really cold. But I was not born in that time and culture. I don't have the full context of that time and culture. But what I do know is I get to know the personality of God better, to get to know the messenger better, things begin to make sense to me. And I begin to trust more and more his leadership in my life. And so it's kind of interesting to me how even that, like, connected with me, and it connected with me on that level, watching Clark and Jor-El and their relationship grow. And, you know, the seasons went back and forth. I think season 8 was probably the worst season that show ever had because, you know, writers quit, Lex Luthor quit, and so new writers came in, and, you know, they had to recast some things, and I don't know. Season 8 was just, it was on very wobbly legs. 9 and 10 began to pick it back up, and 10 really is a great origin story of Clark. But overall, I enjoyed the overwhelming sense of destiny that Smallville brought. I really connected to that. I enjoyed, even through the bad episodes and the freaks of the weeks, still watching Clark become the man that he's supposed to be. And it helped knowing his destiny. It just brought in that connection of Clark, don't grow weary in doing good. Stay the path. You're going to see this come through. And watching the different stages of his development, from fear to pride, back to humility and having the right heart. Like, a lot of that was just such an interesting ride and journey, and a very interesting take on the character of Superman for me. So Smallville will forever be one of my top 5 favorite shows of all time. What did you think of Smallville if you saw it? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments, and what are some of your top 5 favorite shows of all time? While you're there leaving those comments, hit that subscribe button to become a Durbanian, and hit that bell next to the subscribe button. That way you're notified the moment I drop new videos, and you follow me and know the moment a new video drops. I'd love to have you as a Durbanian. Please like and share this video. I'm Durbin. Thank you for checking out Durbania.